And we are starting another set of conversation talking about power, transportation, and matters arising. So you're also part of that conversation. Tweet at Channels TV, send us emails about what your concerns are, and we'll be glad to receive them.
Well, we've since been joined by another guest to join the other two that we had, Babajide Ogunsowo, a data and information analyst. I want to thank you so much indeed for making our time to be with us. And of course, you know, our two initial guests, Wole Oluyemi, a chartered accountant, as well as Pascal Odebo, a public affairs analyst. Let's start with you, Babajide. What's your first impression? You listened to the speech by Buhari. What's your first impression that you can take away from the economy?
It's interesting looking at where we are today and where the general has what he has done today. It is looking at when.
Yes, he has dropped the general name, though.
Yes, he's dropped the general name, but
it's not the return of the general.
It
is
the
president now.
I will stick with calling him the general for two reasons. We have cases. If you look at Israel and you look at the former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, he also had the nickname that he used all throughout while he was Prime Minister. Then his nickname was Arik. And even the current Prime Minister, excuse me, of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is exactly his nickname is Bibi. So when we say the general, it doesn't change us from looking at him as the president, but what he does is it breaks down the level of formality between Nigerians and the president. So yes, he is President Muhammadu Buhari, but he's also the general. The general wasn't a name that he chose for himself. It was the name that was given to him based on his rank in the Nigerian army. So it's not a name that he can willingly discard of. So he's the president, he's the people's president, but he's also the general.
All right. What's your take, though, on the economy and then what you're expecting from this new government?
Looking at the speech, he talked about four immediate things that were of concern. That's power outage. He talked about fuel scarcity. He talked about the pervasive corruption, and he talked about insecurity. If you look at these four things, the only one that he qualified was corruption, and he called it pervasive corruption. When he talked about insecurity, he just said, we're going to deal with insecurity. When he talked about the fuel shortages and the power outrage, it directly mentioned those words, power outrage and fuel scarcity. But when it comes to corruption, he said pervasive corruption. And what is interesting about how he has described corruption is if you look at his speech when he took over power 31 years ago, when he was to describe corruption, he used the same description on corruption, pervasive corruption. So in terms of who is the president, I think we still have the same general that came into power in 1983. A lot of emphasis on corruption. His mindset doesn't seem to have changed. So he's looking at corruption. In 83, he called corruption pervasive corruption. In 2015, 31 years after, when he's describing corruption, he's still using that same word he used 31 years ago, pervasive corruption. So I think the inner man is still the general. But his outer man, especially if you look at where he's coming from, 31 years ago, when he did give that speech after the coup, he started with the primary reason why they were taking over government was to totally erase corruption. He even didn't go with the general accolades of fellow Nigerians or greetings. And what is extremely important when you look at how he spoke when he initially came into power in 1983 was he went straight to the point. It was very direct, wasn't emotional, and he only even ended the speech, or he only did his greetings at the end of his speech in 1983. So his good morning in 1983 was the last word he used. No good mornings in the beginning, no greetings in the beginning, and after his speech, he then used the word good morning. This time around, he's done the reverse. He started with the general greetings, he's thanked the president, he's thanked those that contributed to his campaign. All that was missing from the general in 1983. It was more harsh, it was more confrontational, and that has changed on his outer man. But on the inner man, especially looking at some of the words he used when he used those words. I think the general is still the same person that we knew in 1983.
All right. This next question is to you. You're big on numbers. You're someone of statistics, information, numbers. Now, I know that you would have seen that this is a very important thing that people should have, but quite a large number of Nigerians don't seem to have adequate information about their own country, such that it drives them to action and good quality decision making. What do you think we should be doing as a country right now about getting our people to have sufficient information? Let's forget a bit about what the government is doing, but how they can help themselves getting more information and getting more educated. Basically, talk about that.
First, it has to do with they have to develop an inner passion to ask questions, and we need to ask a lot of whys. And in asking those questions, we then need to source for that information. Some of this information is publicly available, so a lot of the information and a lot of the figures I use are not figures from Jide Oguson. They are figures that, yes, I've acquired and built up from institutions like the National Bureau of Statistics, the Central Bank of Nigeria, and other international agencies. Now, if you are in need of all this information, especially for our leaders and for the new set of ministers that will be coming on board, what is required is for them to set up teams and look for those key individuals, especially the general, that will be able to assist in providing this high level of detailed information, not just because that information is for having sake. It's because even the Economic Intelligence Unit clearly specify that data-driven decision-making improves policies. So what we expect is for the president to set up a team of experienced people, which will be the older men, and to also set up a team of much younger, brilliant minds that will enable him to drive some of these decisions using data. Interestingly, the president seems to also appreciate the use of data. In 1983, during his speech, it was totally devoid of information. This time around, he's talking about 4,000 megawatts generating capacity that doesn't seem to be enough for all of us, which is clearly the case. He's talking about $20 billion that has been pumped into power. Previously, it was a general that spoke based on a military position. His speeches were devoid of facts, were devoid of figures. And today we've seen him speak, and we've seen him use some numbers. So I think he also appreciates the relevance of data in the policies that he wants to implement.